I thought it was a very good 22-minute Rick and Morty episode.
Right.
What was up with you last night? I was totally talking to you and you acted like I wasn't there.
I did. Oh, yeah, no, that wasn't me. Technically, that was my night person. Been having him do crunches while I sleep. Check it.
It was just done better. It was done tightly and tautly. The concept of who really owns the personage if you have two different consciousnesses living inside the same person.
You make an excellent point. I agree with you. I love Rick and Morty. I think Rick and Morty unfortunately undoes a lot of other television because it's so brilliant that it's like, if you watch Rick and Morty, you're like, yeah, the Night Family was a better version of this, a much faster version. You know, if they can do it fast and you have to take 2, 3, 4 seasons, they gotcha. Essentially talked about it already, but let's talk about indentured servitude. But Helly comes on after her innie has threatened to like chop her fingers off, and Helly sends a message back to her innie and says,
I am a person. You are not. I make the decisions. You do not. And if you ever do anything to my fingers, know that I will keep you alive long enough to horribly regret that.
And it is a very cruel message. That's essentially what we're talking about here when we're talking about Severance. The new person wakes up and is forced to work.
As we see from the PD character, the distinction between the innie out in and outie is really a false one. It is created by this medical procedure, this implanting this chip in there. But if the chip is removed or it is altered, then it becomes clear that they're really the same person. Of course, this is not a reality in our world. This is not something that can be done. Am I going to say that it could never be done? I'm not going to say that, but I'm going to say it's not done now. Some people could say, oh, wait a minute, isn't this a commentary on multiple personality? And should we consider these other personalities as separate beings? And the answer to that is no. I mean, I think you could take a stance on that, but I don't think that's backed up by science. I don't think that's backed up by experience, especially as integrate aspects of a person's personality. Mm-hmm. We find that they have much more in common, especially around a trauma bond, than they have separate. And I think the other thing that makes Severance distinct from the idea of dissociative identity disorder, they're not actually different personalities. They have the same personality, but they're temporally and spatially distinct.
Right.
So it's as if you're just living in a different space and time, but they have the same personality characteristics as their outie. They're just shaped differently.
Which I thought was an interesting choice because you did have the ability as, a screenwriter here to make a comment about nature versus nurture. If you are sort of starting over a little bit where you don't have the memories, you don't have certain traumas, like Adam Scott's character doesn't have, a trauma, and a trauma sort of shapes our behavior in ways. Could you have a character who is completely different than he is in the outside world? And they explore a little bit of it. He is exceptional at his job inside, and he is not good at having any responsibility. He's not a very good father, living a very he just doesn't have his shit together. And he does inside Severance. In different situations, people will flourish. And I think they could have explored it more. Do you think that you could thrive or exist as an innie who has been severed?
Absolutely not. It's a horrendous severing of parts of your personage. I mean, they talk about it and they show it very vividly that you just wake up in the elevator and it's nothing but toil. I think Dylan says that to Helly.
Just never stops, huh?
Endless toil.
It's a horrendous, grotesque lifestyle.
It is compared to your other lifestyle, but you don't know your other lifestyle. They give them little treats.
Mm-hmm.
And is that enough for someone who doesn't know any different? Is it enough that it's like, here's a coffee cozy? Are they giving you just enough to continue you doing the work in a life when you don't know any different?
So that's the highest award?
If we hit our numbers by quarter's end, that shit gets you a waffle party.
They set this up from the very beginning that while you don't have your personal memories, you do have structural memories. They know what things are like sleep. They know what things are. They know how to speak. So you don't have your personal memories. That's what's severed. But you still have functional memories.
Functional memories of learning, but not of experience. They talked about this in Good Will Hunting.
I ask you about love. Probably quote me a sonnet. But you've never looked at a woman and been totally vulnerable.
They know what the sky is, but they've never experienced it. They've never seen it. So they don't necessarily have an emotional connection with those things. They just know what they are. I don't know. I think it's interesting.
Your question was, are these little gifts enough to keep somebody going. In the medical world, pizza party has really become a pejorative term, especially during COVID when everybody was working ungodly hours for not more pay mostly and things like that. Health systems who were claiming bankruptcy, and many of them were, although the insurance companies and other parts of the medical system were flourishing, would say, hey, we appreciate you. Here's a pizza party for an hour out of your day once every 6 months. And that was supposed to make up for the fact that inflation was outpacing wages and your hourly wage was dropping because you were being asked to work more and more. It's a pejorative thing. That is part of the satire of this show.
I want you to hit me as hard as you can.